Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Focused Mindset podcast. We have a lot to talk about. I was just thinking about the interview that I just did for some people in the state of California. I was able to represent my state for some work that they're doing. And it was interesting because I hop on and they're like, we want two angles. We want to look at this from several different angles. And I was like, okay, how can we do that? And then, of course, they had an idea and I set up a kind of like tripod on the side with my telephone. And so there was two different views that they could get to put together their video. And as I was looking, because we're recording online and I could see the two different angles, and here I am talking and saying the same exact thing, but it looks so very, very different when it's my profile kind of like this looking and over like this. And I thought, there is a lot of different ways to look at situations. And sometimes we just need to stop and say, let's look at this from different angles. And today we're going to look at MTSS support for school counseling as it pertains to school counseling, but also as it pertains to your life and as it pertains to you as a leader. If you're leading a company, if you're leading a group of individuals that all need to have a common goal to go somewhere. And here you are trying to make it happen. And many times people get stuck looking at things one type of certain way. They look at how they can support others around them in one type of certain way. The truth is that we're multifaceted individuals. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to be sidetracked, or we're just going to be not responding to certain things. So when I think of MTSS, multi-tiered levels of support, I think of us looking at a child, a student, a individual that's about to graduate from high school in our field and saying, what does this person need? Let's look at it from a lot of different angles. And I'm afraid that rather than that, people have just said, okay, what type of support is this? And they're focusing on the type of support. Well, let me tell you the three types of support that this type of tiered level of support gives. The first one is tier 1. And tier 1 is number 1 because it's where we spend most of our time, because it's universal support that is for all students, focusing on awareness, education, and prevention. Now, what am I reading this from when I look over? I'm reading this from the school counselor role in student mental health form. Through the state of California. It's very similar in every state, though, isn't it? Because we want to have that tier 1 that goes out to everybody and focuses on prevention. Now, what is tier 2? Because we have 3 of them. Tier 2 focuses on supplemental support for some students. Some students who need an additional level of intervention. What does that look like in our counseling practice? It's giving supplemental support and additional service provided to some of the students who require more than just the general, right? And that kind of speaks for itself. Small groups, bringing out little problems that might be happening and saying, let's talk about it together. Let's get in a circle. Let's dig this out and let's talk about it. Now, what would be tier 3 then? The tier 3 is saved for the special attention. We all need special attention from time to time. I want to be in tier 3. I want to have that special one-on-one attention. But this one is intensified support. That is for a few students who need additional levels of individualized focus to manage their mental health needs. Individualized, right? So this is intensified support. It's targeted support. And you know what? It's those kids that are having such a hard time managing that we need to be able to sit with them one-on-one, and we need to be able to intervene. It's still very proactive in nature. But it involves, there's always going to be this handful of kids where they're your tier 3. We're watching them, right? Now, here is the crazy thing about all of this. When we look at kids, people, from many different lenses, our logical mind wants to just put them in a category. Well, they're doing really well. Let's just let them get a tier 1 support where everyone's getting this support. Let's have them have a presentation of some sort, or, whatever. Or put them in a tier 2, they need a little extra help. Oh, let's talk to them one-on-one, level. I don't think that that's a healthy way to look at this type of support. I think it's better to look at it as a continuum of support that moves with every individual. Let's look at this in the scope of a family, right? Families have different needs, and different people in the family have different needs at different times. It can't always feel fair because one kid might need a higher level of support. But what happens to the kid that's like, hey, I'm always just sitting here doing the right thing, but I need attention too? Well, if I was to sit down with a coaching family, I coach a lot of families together as a group. I would look at a problem, and we don't make the family the problem, right? We make the problem the problem. Maybe the problem is there's too much arguing, too much fighting, bickering. Well, the way that I want you to look at your levels of support, if you will, is to say, what can we pour into each one of these 3 areas, these 3 tiers that can help support less conflict, less problems? I don't think it's one or the other. It's a continuum of all. In a family, we could say, well, what could we all do together that could possibly bring down this level of conflict that we're always having? And if we're sitting together and we're brainstorming about this, or even if it's an individual thing, you can write down your ideas. It might be we haven't done an outing recently. We need to maybe implement going on walks at night. We need to maybe set some guidelines around our communication and all have an agreement to that. This is just like school-wide, everybody gets it support that I would give my very own students. But in a family, you can still give that first level of support to the entire family. Even if the strife is happening with one particular member of the family more than others, the whole family can come together. You can watch a valuable YouTube or listen to a podcast together and then come together and talk about it. Everybody getting themselves on the same page, using the same language, the same values, agreeing to that. This is you saying, we have a problem, for this example, in this family. And it is strife and it is conflict. It's not this person or the other person. And here's our level 1 support. Then you move to tier 2, and you know that you need targeted support for groups. You might say, I need to have a mom and son, mom and daughter date, and take this one of my children out for a special treat, a special outing, a special walk, maybe just the 2 of us. And I talked to a parent recently that went on a walk with their child that was raging and so mad about a situation. And he told me that he said, I know that I'm not going to get tired. You're probably going to get tired before me. So we're just going to keep walking until you're ready to talk about it. And I thought that was so funny because I could see this child with little legs going, oh man, how long am I going to stay angry and refuse to talk to this parent about this? Communication is everything. So for them, it took a little while, but pretty soon they're walking and he's forgetting that he's tired after all. And they start talking about the real deals, the real feelings. By the end of that conversation, they both were talking about how much they care about each other and how much they want to spend more time together. And that's really the reason for that particular situation's rage, was that the son was feeling so left out and not heard and not valued, even though the father thought he was doing everything he could. And it leveled up their relationship. It really did. And that's the type of level 2 support that a family would need if they're having strife. Or this is level 2 support. You're saying, what kind of small groups? What kind of, if there's a situation I can do to bring a higher level of peace, satisfaction, and understanding with everybody, what is that? If it's with a small group, what group is it? And how is it going to look? And what's my plan for that? And then you take action on that. Maybe you need a mini text group with a couple of people. You need to be able to have a special movie night. Maybe you and your significant other just have not got enough time for the 2 of you. And that stress is pouring off onto the family, right? So you need to give that level of support. Now, what about when the tier 3 is necessary? The tier 3 seemed like maybe the problem. Maybe originally it's like, oh, this particular person in the family is causing support. But in looking at it, it's a group situation. Doesn't mean you ignore the tier 3 that needs to happen. You make a targeted and planned effort to take care of that problem. And you look at it from all different angles, different views. What if we had them talk to another family member that also struggles with the same thing? What if they went to a camp that they would love? What if we got them involved in more activities? What if we got them involved in therapy? What if we talked to the school counselor? On and on. We are curious about what level 3, tier 3 that we're giving. Now, think about this in the form of our education system. If we're not just saying plug them into it and we'll see how it goes in a couple of weeks when we meet back at our MTSS meeting as a group, we're saying, okay, is this person receiving the support that they need in all of these 3 levels? Now, look, even if somebody is not necessarily needing a tier 3 personalized support, according to the way it looks, they do. So for them, their support might be make sure and call them by name, make sure give them a high five, make sure and give them a recognition for the thing they're doing well. So a tier 2 support might be find them on the playground in their own environment and ask them to introduce their friends. This can be as simple as that for a school counselor. I'll tell you, it's always in my mind as an educator of, is this student in front of me getting all 3 of the levels of support? I don't look at the few that are my tier 3 kids as the only kids that get that support. The other ones might be getting just a little bit of extra love when they need it. And when I see them in a classroom, I try to give as much eye contact as I can. Each time I give that high five or that eye contact or remember a child by name, that is their special little tier 3 support. And for me, I have a form that I shared in a conference that I talked to that I put in a child's file. And many times I'll take it out and just write down the different supports they're getting, 1, 2, 3. And then it gives me a true visual of what is happening. Again, if there's a problem in an entire organization, whether that be a school or a business, the problem might be able to be solved by looking at the solutions in this tiered approach. And just curiosity of what might become, what could be, what's a possibility that could actually happen when we put our heads together in this manner. I think many times it is true that the problem becomes the people. And it becomes a complaint fest and, oh, if they would only, or maybe it's not even the people that are there, this child at school is like, well, you saw the parents, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And that mentality, that never gets us anywhere except for blaming. And I feel like we're sometimes nervous to take ownership because it feels like that we're wrong. But I would hope that we can move to a place of real hopefulness in our life where we can hope for a better tomorrow. And that means that we will be taking ownership of our own actions and saying, what can I do? What's the one thing that I can do? And you know what? If someone I know is doing something that works, let me learn from them. Let me not look at that as a competition or that I'm wrong and they're right. Let me look at this from a new point of view. Let me step away a little bit from my habits and, the way I always do things. And let me look at a new approach. Let me see if there's something that I'm missing and then be willing to admit it when it is happening. Look, we're all missing things. So really, are you willing to admit what you're missing? Because we are. We miss out on big bits of information. Look, when I am learning a new skill, I dissect it. And I'm like, oh, I'm really going to do this well. It's happened when I first learned solution focused. I was like, I'm really going to do this well. And then after they leave, I'll be like, oh, I just remembered something they said that could have really unlocked something if I went down that avenue instead. And instead, I was focusing on let's say it's a very common thing where they'll say something that they've done well in the past, and maybe my mind is focused on the future, what they might be doing in the future. And there's been times where I miss it and I'm like, oh, they said a time when they were successful. Why didn't I deviate and start leaning into that time that they were successful in order for them to duplicate it? Now, I do that a lot more often, but when I was first learning, I would miss those things. We don't beat ourselves up. We say, all right, we're going to regroup. Maybe you need to worry about your own multi-tiered levels of support. Do you need to join a large class to learn solution-focused skills and really hone in on it? Then do it. Do you need a tier 2 where you just have a little intervention, a group? Find that. Do you need coaching? Do you need one-on-one? Look for that. I try to provide all those things with the things that I provide. I mean, hey, I have trainings, obviously, and keynotes that I do. I do the small groups all the time, not only in my school counseling, right, but in my coaching and my trainings that way. And then it's the people that email me. It's the people that coach with me that get that one-on-one training and their solution-focused skills are leveled up. This is really kind of a tier 3, isn't it? With the podcast, because it's you and me. It's you and me getting through this podcast and taking the nuggets that we need to take and then moving forward with a solution-focused mindset. Don't forget to check the show notes, though, because there's all kinds of other ways that we can stay in contact and also resources for you. And I've been very blessed to be able to have my TED Talk be a part of the ASCA National. The ASCA is the American School Counseling Association. They have an online training for solution focused. Yay. And within that training, in one of the modules is my TEDx, How to Lead with Hope, solution-focused conversation navigation. It's there in the training to help people learn how to have casual conversations using the solution-focused approach. Hey, that to me is amazing. That to me shows the value of us learning this, that the National School Counseling Association would put their stamp of approval on this type of communication. So it's time for you to get out there, give it a shot. What level of support are you going to focus on? How are you going to wrap around your company, your family, your students, and give them the wraparound support that they truly need? All right, until next time, live solution focused.